Welcome to Real Estate U with Lettiann.
Welcome, Conrad Miller, to Real Estate U with Lettiann. And Conrad, thank you so much for coming back. Conrad Miller is proprietor of Miller Law Firm, a locally owned business here in Overland Park. And of course, we all support local. Welcome back, Conrad. Thanks for your time today.
Well, thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
You bet. So in our first episode, we talked about how one might find themselves in a bankrupt situation. And today, I'd love to talk about what's the recovery process like and how can one bounce back after bankruptcy. But before we go there, I have a little sidebar from the last episode.
Okay.
We talked about foreclosed properties.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you, do the homeowners have the opportunity to get the home back during the foreclosure process? It's almost like, do they have like a first right of refusal? Although that's not the right word, I'm sure.
It's actually what's called a redemption. Right.
Redemption. Okay.
Yeah. So you can, and in both Kansas and Missouri, you can do that.
And when in the process?
Well,
do they
you can
have
do
a certain period of time?
Well, this is where the career education system education comes in, because this is what we talk about there. So
He teaches there, folks, the local pre-license class and continuing educations class. Again, another locally owned business, career education system.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so I do that, but we talk about statutory and equitable redemption. Equitable, if before you get into it, they're going to send you a letter and say, oh, hey, look, this is what you owe. And so you can cut a deal with them before the bankruptcy sale to reinstate your loan. There's various, HARP, federal things you can do to stay that off. And you can do that before the sale. After the sale, and that's where, in Missouri, you're at the courthouse steps and the trustee says sold, or in Kansas, it's the sheriff comes out and then they've gone through the whole judicial process and the gavel comes down and says sold. After that, you got to go look at what the law says, and that's the statutes. And Missouri, you're pretty much out of luck. At that point,
After the sheriff,
after the trustee sale, you to do that, you got to put down a bond and all this stuff. Kansas much more friendly. The court actually sets the redemption period. Usually it's about 90 days. So you have 90 days to vacate the property, buy it back, or vacate it. You can go back. I've done that before where, we've been trying to do a short sale and everybody's agreed, but, so I've actually extended redemption rights before. I've actually had a court order that somebody accept the sale price back a few years ago. But yeah, you've got time to buy it back. And quite frankly, you can do anything with it during that period. You live in it, you can rent it, you can sell it.
Why do people trash it? Are they just pissed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so. Or a lot of people come to me, and this is people in this bankruptcy, and they go, oh, I got the letter there, they're going to foreclose on it. First thing I say is, well, Kansas and Missouri, and they go, well, I live in Missouri. I say, well, pack your bags, because it's not, if you're not going to get it back. In Kansas, I say, relax, enjoy. You're not going to have to pay any house payment for a while. So get yourself set up. Unless you want to try to save it, and that would be what we would do in the bankruptcy. But if they're just, I'm just done with it, they've got time because it's going to take you 6 months to a year to get to the point of a sale.
So, people watching today, keep Conrad in mind. If you have any questions, remember both sides of the state line, as we are on the state line of Missouri and Kansas. Conrad's contact information will be here on the screen if it's not up already. So if you have any questions for Conrad, reach out. Again, a locally owned business. Today, though, we are going to come back to bankruptcy. And how does one bounce back from after they've filed? What's the process, and how long does it take for them to sort of get back up and out?
Yeah, let's talk about the process first. like I said, the big thing is you want to make sure that when you file, all your assets are up for grabs. Okay, and they appoint a trustee to come in and look and see. Well, he's got an account. You have he had a bank account with so much in it. He had non-exempt. He has some firearms. He had some kind of collection. Things that aren't exempt. Most things are exempt. Mostly your personal property is exempt. Car.
Oh, cars
up to $20,000 in Kansas.
Both sides. Car?
Missouri's like $3,000.
Okay.
It's not quite as generous. Your house, a certain amount can be exempted. So those are where you want to have your assets when you go into bankruptcy, is in those non-exempt. You can't just right beforehand transfer stuff. I think we talked last time about the guy that bought a house in Kansas so he could turn around and sell it. That doesn't work anymore. They've caught on to that. So there's time periods and time frames. But that's the thing. When you come in and talk to me, we'll say, okay, we want to keep your house. This is what we have to do. We want to, keep this personal property. This is what we have to do. So basically, by the time we file, they should know, what they're going to have to turn over to the court. Tax refunds. A lot of people, I get a $6,000-$7,000 tax refund. Don't get it I say don't. You got to go get your money now. Don't have it withheld so you get a refund, because that's going to go to the trustee. He's going to take that and he's going to divide it among your creditors who file claims. So that's the first thing we do. And then by the time we get to filing, probably I always tell them 90% of what I do is done prior to filing. That's finding all your, making sure all your stuff is correct and you've got all your assets identified. We've gone through, we've got all your creditors that are there. Make sure everything's accurate, and then we can file it at that point.
But you too said in the last episode that you've done it in a day if you had to for somebody.
Yeah.
Does that cost extra?
No, it probably should, but I kind of feel that they got enough trouble without me trying to gig them for an extra, so I mean, I talked about 2005. They changed everything, and you have to go in and do a credit. Before you file, you have to go online and get a certificate that says you did a credit counseling or a credit check or something. And after you file, you got to go do another one. So that's the big thing, So you've got to do that before you file. So I mean, when the gal came in to file on a Friday, I mean, I got the screen up and I said, okay, here's you get it. And so she went online and did the program, and we pulled down her credit report, pulled everything off of there, and then we were able to file it the same day. Now, it's like I said, that's not an ideal situation, because I don't know what, she may have a bank account, she may have things that were not exempt. Turned out to be okay, but, preferably you want to make sure that you've got at least those assets that you can protect to be protected. And so when you come out of bankruptcy, the process is you file it, you go to the trustees
Court appointed.
Court appointed, yeah, the trustee. He's going to look at your stuff, and that's about a 5-minute hearing.
Oh.
It's just boom, you go down, it's down at the courthouse, 5 minutes, and if he has some questions, you get them what they want. If there's some assets that they find, then you've got to turn them over. And usually we don't, but sometimes you do. And so if you do,
a boat or something.
a boat, a tax refund.
Oh.
Some people would go say, "Oh yeah, I got that tax refund," or they didn't. They thought they didn't.
No,
they got that was bigger than they thought. So you got, sometimes you do have to do that, but so and then in like 3 months after that, then there's a discharge.
What does that mean?
That means
that sounds kind of ugly.
Well, it's actually that's what the discharge means, that they've completed everything, that there's been no objections,
so that's a good thing. A discharge.
All their creditors now are prevented from trying to collect anything.
Everything's on the table. Like everything's out.
Everything's gone. They have no more debts, except, again, I don't want to get into, but you can keep your house, you can keep your car. If you got a payment, you can continue to pay and keep your car. You can keep your house if you want to continue to keep paying it.
Both sides?
Both sides.
Okay.
We call them reaffirmation agreements, and we can go over that. But you can keep that. So then
it's life as usual, or what happens after that?
Well, you survive.
Of course.
I haven't lost one yet, so
that's good.
At least due to bankruptcy. I've had a couple clients go by the way, but not because of the bankruptcy. So it goes on. And the only thing is that, if you have a car payment, you're going to keep making your car payment. If you have a house payment, you're going to continue to make your house payment.
Do people do that?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah,
so they still have the funds to make those payments.
Sure.
It's just the people that you owe money to, other than your home and auto, they can't touch you.
Yeah, they cannot. Their exclusive remedy is the assets that the trustee would find.
But that has to not be good for them in some way. What's the negative effect? Even though it's like, okay, creditors can't come after me, I won't get those calls anymore. But how does that affect them in other ways?
Well, their credit. Their credit's not going to be.
But you can build that back up over time.
Well, and in the program I have on I pulled the credit down. It tells you what your credit is now and what it'll be a year after your bankruptcy, and inevitably, with very few exceptions, their credit may be at 480, which means they got their name spelled right. And after they're up over 620. It shows
within a year.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's like a projected.
Yeah, it'll project because they're going to taking out all these debts that you owe, and presuming that you continue to make your payment on your house, you continue to make your car payment. That's all positive credit. The credit goes up, and usually about 2 years after bankruptcy, they start getting. Sometimes right after bankruptcy, they start getting these. Credit card applications, or come buy a car. Those are the things that you got to avoid.
Okay, so don't open another credit card.
Well,
account.
don't. Yeah, what I recommend is that if you're going to do that, you'll get a secured credit card. So find somebody that will do, like a real credit card. Some banks, you put $1,000 in their account, and then they give you $1,000 credit card. Great. So that shows you have credit, and you can kind of rebuild that credit up a little bit.
Would that be like the same thing as a debit card? It's almost like you have the money in the bank. It's a debit card. Get a real credit card.
Get a real credit card. Get it because it will be a credit card, just a secured credit card. So
aren't they all secured?
No. Those are unsecured. Generally unsecured debts, which means, and those are generally what's discharged in bankruptcy, are all your credit cards, any lawsuits people have against you. Everything stops the minute it's filed. They've got to stop.
All of that.
All that. So
they start just make cash transactions, except for their auto and home and like their groceries, necessities, clothing, food.
Well,
kids.
you can get a debit card.
Yeah.
But
it's not going to help them with their credit.
It doesn't help with their credit. In fact, I recommend that. I said, you need to have a debit card, so you don't get a big credit card and all of a sudden,
you're in trouble
because if the
again.
money's not in there, you shouldn't be, paying it.
Right.
So I recommend get a debit card. You can have a checking account or whatever. If anybody still uses checks, I don't know.
I do.
But you could that's fine, and that'll help build your credit back up. But keeping your car payment, keeping your house payment going, keeping your credit card, a new credit card, all that stuff will be. And I think that I'm not going to swear by this, but I think that most lenders after 2 years out of bankruptcy will loan on your house, so you can go buy a house.
Well, that was my next question.
Wow.
How soon after one files bankruptcy can they purchase a home?
I would say probably 2 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now it's going to vary by lender, but I mean there are lenders that will do it.
So this would be like after a foreclosure, they've lost their home, because I know we've talked about, okay, if they continue to do the positive credit and make payments on their house payment, that means they're still in their home and making their payment. But we talked about a life change, losing a job.
Yeah.
So
and
so many different scenarios.
Actually, a foreclosure I think is worse for your credit than a bankruptcy.
Okay.
So if you can save the house and keep making the payments, and there's various ways you can work that. There's two types, but there's a repayment plan, which is a Chapter 13, and that's kind of how you save. If you're behind, if you're getting on foreclosed a house, if they're, on Monday they're foreclosing, and on, the Chapter 13 stops all that, and then you can make payments through the trustee to get it caught up over 60 months. So that's what you would do if you had a foreclosure situation. So
we have just about 2 minutes left. This information has been amazing, but there's so much to know. And I think each individual would be so specific to what they had, where they live, what they owe, how much debt they have, all of that. So anyone seeking advice regarding bankruptcy or how to avoid it or how to get out of it, or if you need assistance from Conrad, please reach out to Conrad. And we always encourage you to support local folks. Conrad Miller, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And if anybody has any questions, I routinely answer, questions without, they don't need to fear, oh, well, it's going to cost me money to talk to an attorney, because free consultations, I talk to people all the time.
So they can call you, ask you a few questions, maybe set up an appointment and go from there. Yeah. Thank you for taking the fear out of it, because they're already nervous enough.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like, we already don't have any money, and now we have to secure an Overland Park attorney. What's that going to cost? You almost are fearful to make the call.
Yeah.
But really, it's in your best interest, folks, to get the facts and what's happening in your world. So give Conrad a call, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks.